Khajuraho, an art lover's paradise. If you love art and if you love sculpture and architecture, then these temples of Khajuraho, which are famous for the Nagara style architectural symbolism and a few erotic sculptures, are bound to captivate you.
Couple who drunk a lot, जिन्होंने इतनी पी रखी है, who can't able to stand properly, खड़े नहीं हो पा रहे हैं।
कौन सा?
Follow their hips, उनके hips को follow करिए, it's all connected well. Makes sense. They are almost sort of dizziness वहाँ पर artist show कर रहे हैं. Man who is left of us wearing shorts. Lady who is right of us wearing a long sari, उसमें long sari वहाँ पर पहनी है. Lady she also hold a pot.
The Khajuraho group of monuments are a group of Hindu and Jain temples in Chhatarpur district, Madhya Pradesh, India. This continuous panel of sculptures is just like a movie. It shows the daily life. Most Khajuraho temples were built between 885 century CE and the 1000th century CE by the Chandela dynasty. There might have been 85 temples spread over an area of 20 square kilometers. Of these, however, only 25 temples have survived, spread over 6 square kilometers. The temple complex was forgotten and overgrown by a jungle until it was discovered in 1838 by Captain T.S. Burt, a British engineer who visited the complex and later on reported his findings in the Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. We came here on 23rd October 2023. It was a bright sunny day and the sky was an azure blue. The golden yellow monument stood out in sharp contrast against the blue sky. It was fascinating. The name Khajuraho or Khajuravahaka is derived from the ancient Sanskrit words Khajur, which means date palm, and Vahaka means one who carries or bearer. Local legends state that the temples had 2 golden date palm trees at their entrance, which is missing now. The central Indian region where Khajuraho temples are located was controlled by various Muslim dynasties from the 13th century through the 18th century. During this period, some of the temples were destroyed, others were neglected, but miraculously most have survived because of the remoteness of the region. The Muslim rulers were unable to discover this beautiful place because it was hidden by the jungles. The Khajuraho temples are made of sandstone with a granite foundation that is almost concealed from view. The builders didn't use any mortar or cement-like binding material. The stones were put together with mortise and tenon joints that were held in place by gravity. And this is the Vishwanatha temple. Almost all the temples of Khajuraho follow a basic pattern, with the topmost kalash, followed by amalaka, then the shikhara or the tower. There will be a garbhagriha where the idol is usually placed, and there will be a urushringa, a subsidiary shikhara. There will also be a antaral or vestibule, and a maha mandapa, which is a great hall, followed by a mandapa and the ardha mandapa or the entrance porch. All the temples have a rich display of intricately carved statues. While they are famous for their erotic sculpture, sexual themes cover less than 10% of the temple sculpture. Contrary to popular belief, Khajuraho is not only about eroticism and sexuality, when it covers less than 10%, almost 5% of all the sculptures. Most of the sculptures depict daily life of normal human beings. This is the Varaha statue, the Varaha avatar of Vishnu, inside the Varaha Temple of Khajuraho. The sculpture is colossal, 2.6 meters long and 1.7 meters high, and it is monolithic and made of sandstone. The sculpture is carved with numerous figures on its entire body. One of the most popular tourist destinations in India, Khajuraho has the country's largest group of medieval Hindu and Jain temples. The coexistence of Hindu and Jain temples speaks highly about the religious tolerance which existed when these temples were being built. The Khajuraho group of monuments has been listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1986, and therefore it is considered as one of the 7 wonders of India. If in India, just as you must see Taj Mahal, I would say Khajuraho should be a must in your bucket list. I can say, if you haven't seen Khajuraho, you haven't seen India. When these monuments and sculptures were built, the boys living in this place lived in hermitages and were called brahmacharyas until they attained manhood, and these sculptures taught them to learn about the worldly role of a householder. So, it can be said that even in those medieval times, Indian art and culture was advanced enough to incorporate sex education in daily teachings and learning procedures. Did you know that out of the 536 hymns of Atharva Veda, 40 are dedicated to the subject matter of sex? Similarly, while the erotic sculptures in Khajuraho temples have attracted all the attention, it is worth noting that they constitute only 10% of all the sculptures. The 4 goals of human life, dharma, artha, kam, moksha, are all depicted on the temple walls. Besides, there are sculptures of painters, musicians, artists, and warriors, etc. But it is the erotic sculptures which have gathered all the limelight. So the obvious question is, why do we find these erotic sculptures on temple walls? Well, there are not one but many answers. First, these temples were like a way of introduction to adult life. So young men and women were introduced to them only when they attained a certain age. Second, in the Indian religion, sex has always been interpreted with a philosophical and spiritual dimension. thus advocating for its complete acceptance without treating it as obscene. And so the walls of the temples are but an extension of this reality and acceptance without attaching any value judgment to it. Third, these temples are inspired by tantric philosophy. As per this, those who are the real seekers of truth will remain unmoved and indifferent before the sexual figures, and then he/she gets a right to enter the shrine. But those who run away from it will not be able to enter the shrine with a pure heart, thus having failed in the examination of whether you have mastered your senses. This is similar to the rite of passage practiced in other religions, where you are required to show whether you can remain unmoved when tested on your sexual desires, to demonstrate whether you are ready for a spiritual journey. That's all for today on this episode of Western Group of Khajuraho Temples. See you soon in my next video coming up on the Eastern and Southern Group of Khajuraho Temples. Till then, bye bye, take care.